Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is a solo hammock hot tent camping overnighter. As you guys can see, I've already got this set up, totally ready to go. I've got my green shelter, I've got my large titanium stove, and I brought an open style hammock with an underquilt for this evening to stay nice and warm. So it is very windy out. It is raining, very fine mist right now, and there's supposed to be a storm rolling in. So I've got my shelter pitched and ready for the storm, but I do need firewood. So I'm gonna grab my saw, head off into the woods, and gather up some firewood. Alright guys, I think this is a pretty decent score for now. It is getting extremely windy out right now, and it's going to get stormy, so I want to secure enough wood right now before it does get too bad out. But behind the stove I have all of these rounds, and these are pretty dense softwood rounds, so everything in this area is softwood, which is exactly why I brought this new damper piece with a built-in spark arrestor, just to test it out and to see how well it does with all this softwood burning. Now I do have a canvas shelter, so I'm not worried about embers hitting it, but I'm very interested to see how this performs. I've never used it before, and we'll see how it works this evening. But over here I have a lot of these round punky logs. They're dry inside, but they're wet on the outside. I've got a bunch on that side of the stove, and then I've got a little bit of wood up here. I've got wood all over the place. And this is all I'm going to be cutting and splitting for now. Later on in the evening or later on in the day, I may go and collect some more, depending on how fast this stuff burns. So I am going to be making up a coffee really shortly, which means I do need to light this rather early in the day. I need to go collect some birch bark first, and then go down to the lake and collect a little bit of water. Come back up here, get this going, get the pot on there, and start on some hot coffee. Okay guys, so with this stove setup that I've got here today, this shelter is going to be very, very warm this evening once I get all the doors shut. Right now, I am noticing that this piece, this little spark arrestor placed into the damper area, effectively is a damper and a spark arrestor. However, I am noticing that when I pull it out completely, the stove picks up as I predicted it would. So this is a great tool to reduce a lot of the sparks and embers, and it does hold the stove damped down. The beautiful thing about it is I can pull it out halfway or maybe all the way like I just did, a quarter of the way, and effectively damp it down that way. The stove is burning very hot right now that this is removed, so it's going to be interesting playing around with this piece later on this evening to see how it works. Now, like I mentioned earlier, this is a canvas tent, so I'm not worried about embers flying all over the place. It is wet and rainy out right now, so everything is wet. But this is a very interesting piece, and I think I'm going to like using this with very specific tent and stove combinations. So I'm going to leave it out for now. Let that water come to a boil, because it is from the lake, so it does have to come to a full rolling boil. We are steaming right now, so it doesn't look like too much longer, but I just want to play around with that stove piece for a little bit just to see how it works. And so far, it looks like it's going to work really well and have a very specific use and time to use it. So I'm going to let this do its thing. It is very warm in here, I will say that. The heat radiating off the stove, even with all the wind blowing around, I can feel the heat rolling in here. So it's going to be a very comfortable evening. Alright guys, well it is coffee break time and the winds are picking up something crazy. The treetops are just blowing all over the place. It is still raining, but it's a very fine mist rain. As I am in a pine forest, not a whole lot of that rain is going to make it through. But hopefully later on this evening the rain picks up and we get dumped on, because it is supposed to storm. We will see what happens. But for now, I've got a hot hot cup of coffee on the go, and I'm going to enjoy it. And I am going to actually be cooking supper very shortly because I actually got off to a late start today, and it was a long hike to get into this location. So it's going to be coffee break, and then shortly after, I'm actually going to be cooking inside on the wood stove. So let's get this finished up and then get inside and start cooking. Okay guys, it is now time to start cooking supper, and I gotta say it actually is quite cold out right now, so it's really tempting to put my sweater on and my gloves, but I'm gonna be cooking hamburgers, and like I said, it is still kind of misting out with water, and I don't really want to get soaking wet, and I don't want to get raw meat all over my gloves. So what I brought with me for supper is hamburgers. I did bring a green onion, a red onion, I brought some cheese, 2 hamburger buns, some wasabi flavored mayo, which is awesome, and then 2 frozen hamburger patties. Now these aren't frozen anymore because they have been wrapped in my clothing all day, but it is quite cold out enough that they somewhat stayed frozen, so that's actually really good. And then all my cookware, of course, is all titanium, so that's kind of where I save a little bit of weight. Now like I said, it is kind of cold, so I'm going to do my food processing out here. I'm going to get the patty in the frying pan, get that on the stove right now, and get it damped down so I can come back outside, do all my food prep out here, and do the cooking inside. That way I don't have to be outside in the cold that much. So I'm just going to get my handle on my frying pan and get a patty on the fire and get it cooking because it is cold, like I said. So hurry, and we don't have that much daylight left. I should mention that. I just checked the time and it's coming up on 5 o'clock p.m. So time is flying by very quickly. I don't have a whole lot of time to mess around, so let's get a burger patty out of here and let's get it on the fire or on the wood stove and let it cook away, and then I can come back out here and process some vegetables. So frozen hamburger patty going on the wood stove right now. Alright guys, so I've got 1 hamburger patty cooked and it is time to build this burger. I am starving and I got to get the other one on there cooking very quickly. So let's get this built. Oh, it's so good. Oh wow. Huh. It is so cold out right now. My hands are practically frozen. This burger is hot, spicy, very good. I'm gonna jump inside and eat and get that other patty on the wood stove, get that cooking, get warm and get full. That's gonna be the game plan right now. So get the pan inside, cook up another burger. Alright, so that first hamburger was awesome. I got the second one on the stove right now, still cooking away, and we're losing light very quickly, so I do need to get my lighting set up inside. I brought a battery bank with me, I brought one headlamp with me, and I brought my USB light bulb, which practically goes with me every single trip. So I'm going to hang this just above on either end of the hammock. I haven't decided which end, probably this end closest to the camera. That way it's away from the heat from the stove. And get some lighting going on inside of here and just get ready for nighttime. By the time I'm done straightening up and kind of organizing, hopefully that hamburger will be done. And once that's finished, I'm going to eat, I'm going to clean up, and then probably go into relax mode. Sit back and enjoy, probably make up another hot drink because my fingers are frozen right now. Now granted, I have both doors open, the wind's blowing through here like crazy. If I were to shut a door, I would stay warm, but it would be next to impossible to film, and that's no fun. So I'm gonna get my lighting set up and hopefully finish up supper quickly and then start relaxing. Alright, so ducking inside for this burger. As you guys can see, I got the light hung up top, lots of light inside of here. Lots of heat still rolling out of that stove too, and it's damped down a little bit right now. And it's still nice and warm, so the top is totally blackened from grease spattering off the burger. Once the stove gets hotter later on, the whole top of the lid, it'll all burn off and come back nice and clean. But that's one thing with cooking greasy food. It goes everywhere. So anyways, enough of that. Let's dig in and finish up supper. Oh yeah. Oh man. It is so good. Alright guys, well it is raining quite steady right now. It's really hard to pick it up in the forest, but as you guys can see, all the water beating off of the tarp. Beautiful. Nothing soaks into this tarp. Look at that. All beads of water. So it is getting late in the evening. I'm going to shut one of these doors just because the rain is blowing in on the stove end. And it's actually starting to get my hammock a little bit wet. So I'm going to close this end of the hammock and basically lounge inside nice and warm. Well guys, it is actually raining out now, actual big raindrops, and I can hear them tapping on the outside of the tarp, which is awesome. I love the sound of rain, especially in a nice hot tent. So it is now nightfall, pretty near, so I'm going to be climbing inside for basically the night. I want to get out of these clothes and get my sleep clothes on, which I actually have situated just off to the side here. So I've got my base layer pants, my wool socks, I put my wool sweater on top of my backpack. I'm actually going to be using that as a pillow inside of the hammock. So I got a really comfortable setup. I got to say right now, I'm actually digging this a lot. So I'm going to be sleeping with my head up towards this end. That way I can just simply reach out, put a log in, and then kind of just roll back over in the hammock. Now I brought my under quilt specifically because when I go to sleep, I'm not going to load the stove. I'm only going to be reaching out, loading it while I'm lounging inside. But anytime I go hot tent camping, whether I'm in a hammock or on the ground, once I go to sleep, I never load the stove. I let it go out and I get my sleep. That's why I bring an under quilt and a top quilt. And speaking of my top quilt, it is still inside of my backpack, nice and dry. Once it does come that time to go to sleep, I'm going to pull that out of the backpack, throw it on top, load one last log, probably this big guy here. I've been drying it out right next to the stove, so I'll probably load this and then off to sleep. So I'm going to get changed out of these clothes right now though, and probably close one or two of those doors, and then I'll bring you guys back for an update, and I'm going to start relaxing very shortly. Good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful, windy, crisp, and cool morning out today. So I've got a hot cup of coffee on the go right now, and I'm just chilling out outside, collecting some of this breeze. It is very hot inside, even with the doors wide open. That stove and that tent, it collects a lot of heat, so it's very hot inside of there right now. And looking out across the lake, it is still very, very cloudy out there. So it looks like it's going to be a gray day, which is totally fine by me. I love days like this. And nice cold ones too. So last night it got cold enough to actually freeze a couple of the raindrops on the outside of the tent, because I let the stove go out. So early this morning I came out and I looked, and there were actually little bits of ice on the outside of the tarp. Now of course when I lit the stove, it heated up very quickly in there and they melted off. But it did get cold last night. It got extremely windy. It got so windy my hammock was going up and down because these large pines were just blowing, swaying in the wind. So that was a bit of a rocky ride. And then it rained for probably about 4, maybe 5 hours, like rained hard. And then it just stopped and it got really windy. And by that point, I went to bed, fell asleep, woke up this morning, no rain, a lot of wind, but it seems the wind may be calming down right now. So I'm going to enjoy my hot cup of coffee, and as soon as I'm done this, I'm going to jump inside, get another pot of water on the stove, boil up some water and make some oatmeal, have some breakfast, and then start packing up. Alright guys, so I'm starting the pack up process right now, and I just want to cover what I did with my top quilt system, because as you guys can see, it can't fall out of the hammock, and I want to share how I did that. So I do have an external under quilt, so I got a down under quilt, I got a downfill top quilt, and I've got a basic parachute style hammock. There's no ridge line, there's no bug net, it's just an open style hammock. And what I've done is I've taken my top quilt and I've utilized the pad straps. So this top quilt has pad straps for sleeping pads on the ground, and what I've done is I've wrapped it underneath of the hammock itself and clicked it together. So what that does is it creates a pod system where I can push it off to one end and it's not going to fall out of the hammock. That's about as far as it can go that way, as far as it can go that way, and I have one of the straps undone right now just for this demonstration. But what this does for me is when I'm in the hammock hot tent with a wood stove, this often likes to flop all over the place. Well, I don't want that flopping down touching the wood stove. So this works perfect for me. But what else it does is I can get in and out of the hammock absolutely easily. I just simply reach in my top quilt, or in my under quilt, sorry, and I pull that up just like that. So I tuck my arms in at nighttime, and I am totally warm, encapsulated in downfill, underneath and on top. And then when I want to get out, or if I need to vent a little bit of heat, I can kick that down there and lounge in the hammock like this. I can reach out to the wood stove, load wood in it, and then if I do need to get out for a bathroom break or whatever reason, I simply push it down and I just turn. So this is a very, very smart idea if you guys have pad straps on your top quilts. I highly recommend trying this out, creating like a pod system with your top quilt, and it works really well. I was very hot last night. The stove went out probably at about midnight, and I found myself even kind of just letting this drop down towards my chest area, and I was very hot all night long. No draft, no cold air, nothing. So I want to cover that before I get packed up. Might give you guys some ideas to test out on your own. But with that aside, I am going to continue packing up. The tarp is going to be the first thing because it's the largest and it has to go in the backpack. And then the wood stove, and then everything else will follow after that. So I got to get this tarp down, get it folded up, get the wood stove dismantled, and let that cool down, and then get everything in the backpack. Alright guys, everything is packed away inside of the backpack. It was a little bit of a squeeze, but it's in there no problem. And that's the bonus of having down insulation, is you guys can see there's still a whole lot of squish in there. Let that down expand and fill the backpack. So what I did with the wood stove is I put it in the backpack first down in the hydration sleeve, and then I folded the tarp nice and flat, set that on top, and that gave me room to cram my entire hammock, top quilt, down quilt, all assembled down into the front without risking it tearing on the sharp edges of the wood stove. So that was a really good way to get that in there. All the cooking stuff is mixed in there as well. Pipe on the outside, saw on the outside as usual. Everything went really well. So the camp area is all cleaned up. All the firewood stacked neatly with the other firewood, so if I do return or someone else comes here, they can enjoy it. The area looks beautiful, just like I arrived here yesterday. So that is it for this adventure. If you guys have any questions or comments, drop it down in the comment section and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Until next time, peace out guys, and I'll see you in the next adventure.